Hello there. Welcome to the Bernie Show. I am Bernie Miklasz, and the Bernie Show presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. As you know, at St. Louis Sports Central, which we call STL Sports Central, I do 5 videos a week and write 5 columns a week. And I am always happy to be with Randy Carricker for a guest shot on Friday mornings on the Randy Carricker Show, usually around 10:30. You can always also hear me on KMOX quite often, and I do the Cardinal Territory video podcast with Katie Wu, and I do a weekly Seeing Red podcast with my friend Will Leach. We usually record that on Monday. All right, I like to just let you know what I'm up to. Now we move on to today's topic. The Cardinals need a dynamic star. And before I continue, let me just say this. Today, I'm focusing on the offensive part of this. They certainly could use some young star starting pitchers coming along the pipeline. But today we're just going to focus on the offense. And when I say the Cardinals need a dynamic star, kind of a game-changing, lineup-changing player, actually they need more than just one guy. I think maybe at least 2 guys. And the reason I say 2 guys is I'm not losing my mind. I mean, I look around the National League, for example, and most of the really good teams, have 2 high-level offensive performers. For example, let's stay close to home. Chicago Cubs have Kyle Tucker, and they have Pete Crow Armstrong. And so those 2 guys lead the way in so many areas. And, there are teams that are an exception to that. Although I think the Milwaukee Brewers, if we're talking about big time star talent, and he will become a big time star, that's their outfielder Jackson Chourio. There's no question about it, and on and on and on. So I think having one true dynamic star, it really isn't enough, but it's a start because the Cardinals do not have one. And you got to at least get that first one into your lineup somehow, some way, before you can start, rubbing your hands together and say, we can get 2 or 3 at once. It's just, like I said, I'm trying to be reasonable about understanding this and just also understanding the reality. They have some good players, the Cardinals. They just don't have a great player. And if you are wincing at that and telling me that I'm wrong about that, okay, I understand, but you're also proving my point. Because like right now, if any of you all are saying, well, gosh, that's a little harsh. What about Masyn Winn? What about Brendan Donovan? No offense to them, but we're not talking about right now. We are not talking about guys who would be on the list of, say, the top 30, 35 players in the big leagues. That's all I'm saying. When I say players, I mean hitters. That's all I'm saying. See, what happens here locally, and I'll get back into this a little bit later, when you have a guy like Brendan Donovan who's really good, Masyn Winn who's good, we tend to overrate those guys because it's almost like we forgot what a true star looks like, right? And so just because these guys are better than, say, the other Cardinals, at least if you go by certain statistics or whatever, because they stand out for the Cardinals, it doesn't mean they're true stars. It means they're the best of what the Cardinals have. And the Cardinals do not have that dynamic, true, nationally known and recognized and respected big-time star hitter. They just don't have it. And you know it, right? Now, my point here is not to disparage the players they have, because those guys are doing what they can. And they're very streaky. But they a lot of times they provide plenty of offense, and they're fun to watch. The Cardinals, but let's take a look at the offense, though, the way I do it. They have some good players. They just don't have a great player. Let's take a look at that offense. Number one, the Cardinals have guys who play great defense, but are so offensively. A couple guys that come to mind on that are Victor Scott and Nolan Arenado. Arenado's his OPS plus right now would be the worst of his career. He comes through with some big hits, but that's not the point. Well, he'll come through with a big hit every now and then. No. Big time stars are more of a constant presence in coming up with big plays, big hits. Number two, the Cardinals have guys with obvious talent who lack consistency. and they really can't be depended upon to produce without going through lengthy slumps and lapses. Examples of that include Lars Nootbaar and Nolan Gorman, right? The Cardinals have a former number one prospect that was heralded and touted and raved about down in the minor leagues when he made a quick ascent to the majors. At one point, Jordan Walker was the number one prospect in all of baseball, but now in his third season, he is having his worst season. He's hitting .210 with a very poor slugging percentage. That's Jordan Walker. What's next on my list? Okay, that's 3. Number 4, St. Louis hitters. St. Louis has hitters that are putting up decent numbers, but who aren't producing to anticipated levels. In other words, there's nothing wrong with their numbers. Their numbers are good. But you also know there could be more. And one example of that is actually one of my favorite Cardinals, but this is also true, what I was saying. So an example of that would be Wilson Contreras. He's an above average hitter, and relative to the players around him in St. Louis, he stands out more than most. So he is an above average hitter. He does hit well. But right now, he's got a .420 slugging percentage, Contreras, and a .730 OPS, and both of those figures would be his lowest in a full season since 2018. So even when a guy is good, and even if you appreciate him, he's not as good as we've seen in the past, is my point. The Cardinals are overloaded with left-handed batters. That's next on my list. See, I decided to count it down. Now I'm losing track of count because of my notes. I didn't put numbers. What a klutz I am. 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5, the Cardinals are overloaded with left-handed batters, but only one, Brendan Donovan, is at least 20% above the league average offensively based on OPS plus. As a group, the St. Louis left-handed hitters rank 18th among the 30 teams in OPS and 17th in slugging percentage, and they're only hitting .240 with runners in scoring position. Look, when you have as many left-handed hitters as this team does, you got to be better. You got to be better than 18th, like when compared to all major league teams' left-handed hitters. You got to be higher on that list if you're investing so many at bats, so much time in left-handed hitters. You can't be 18th. You got to be more distinguished than that. That's my point. The next thing on my list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 6, the Cardinals don't have enough quality right-handed batters who can pummel left-handed pitchers. We've seen that over the last month or so, especially. The Cardinals' collection of right-handed hitters ranks in the middle of the 30-team pack when we're comparing each team's right-handed hitters. The Cardinals are like right in the middle, basically, in their performance against lefties. All right. Middle of the pack isn't 25th. Middle of the pack isn't 28th. Middle of the pack's not awful. But that ain't the point. If your right side bats cannot punish left-handed pitching, you're just not getting enough impact from them. That's the point. When we see the Cardinals be so inconsistent, these are some of the reasons why they're so inconsistent. And then there's the outfield. And, I harp on this a lot, and let's update it. The Cardinals, as you all know very well, right, have been cycling through outfielders for years and years, and they still can't get it right. I mean, how many outfielders have they gone through? Oh, this is going to be our starting outfield. Oh, next year. Oh, this is our starting outfield next year. No. This right here, that's our starting lineup. There's the outfield. No. As of Wednesday morning, every year, I mean, it's a different story, different song, right? They still can't get it right. As of Wednesday morning, the St. Louis outfield as a group compared to other major league outfields, right? The St. Louis outfield group ranks 25th among the 30 teams in batting average and OPS and is 26th in slugging percentage. Collectively, the Cardinals outfield as a whole is 11% below the league average for other outfield groups. And they also rank, when you look at that 11% below league average offensively, that this outfield group ranks 12th among the 15 National League teams' outfield groups. It simply ain't good enough. And how many seasons does it take you, the front office, which is in its final year, thankfully. But how many years should it take to put together a good outfield? This is like the never-ending story, right? It's just one after another, failed experiment, failed group. I don't know. See, this is part of John Mosaic's legacy. Now, imagine if the Cardinals had like a really good outfield offensively. Well, their offense would be a lot better overall, correct? Now, you may be wondering, well, Bernie, how bad can it really be? Because you and a lot of us always point out the Cardinals rank 9th in the majors in runs per game. So aren't you exaggerating this? Aren't you making too big of a deal about this? They are ninth in baseball in runs per game. That's a really good question, and that's a very fine point. And I'm happy to answer this because I do have an answer to this because it's kind of looking at it from a different angle, and I will explain that angle to you when I come back. But first, some words about DraftKings and the daily Pick 6 game. DraftKings fantasy game covers a wide variety of sports, but if you think you know your baseball, go for it. Put that brain, put that knowledge to use, and win big cash prizes through the daily Pick 6 contest. In DraftKings Pick 6, you just focus on a player stat or a pitcher stat, and you select anywhere from 2 to 6 players and choose whether that individual player will go higher or lower on a specific stat line set for his next game by DraftKings. Yeah, it really is that simple. And, if you use the DraftKings app, they'll let you call up players. You'll see his, like a facial, like a headshot of the player and his name, and you can click it on and you can see what his recent performances are. So they even give you some homework to help you make a good choice to when you go for those 2 to 6 players. It really is that simple, and it's a lot of fun. So come on, get in the game. Take your shot. Take a swing. Get that money. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. You'll enjoy tracking your selected players while the games are in progress, but the most fun of all is winning at DraftKings. And yes, you can do that. Like I mentioned, it's easy to get going. Just download that fabulous DraftKings app, open an account, and get going. Choose a sport, pick your players, and it's first pitch, right? New players at DraftKings get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly with just a $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now, and you'd use the code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, let's get back to your question. Appreciate you listening to those words about DraftKings. If the Cardinals don't have stars, and if they're lacking in the several areas that I just pointed out, then why do they rank 9th in the majors in runs per game? I'm telling you, that's a really good question, because I even thought about that. Well, if they're a top 10 offense in runs per game, maybe it's not. It's better than I think. I don't think so. Here's why. This offense is extreme in nature. This offense, and pardon my cliches, right? This offense is feast or famine. This offense is all or nothing. This offense is ferocious for one game or one series, and then it goes to futile. It's almost like there's hardly ever any stops in between. They're either outstanding or they're awful. I mean, those are the two major ways to define them. We've seen them in a lot of games be a truly outstanding offense, but we've seen them in a lot of games just be just flat out like it's enough to just make you go, is this the same team? What happened to these guys? Where did they go? And you know that I'm right about this. And look, when teams don't win games, most of the time, or a lot of the time, the offense won't do well. That's part of baseball. That's always gone on. I mean, if you go through, say, like a 1-6 stretch, chances are you ain't scoring that many runs. Now, you might be having bad pitching instead, or bad pitching and a bad offense. But yeah, when you lose, and I'm not talking about a game here and there, but when you lose over a little period of time, I wouldn't expect to see the offense putting up a big amount of runs. So this is just baseball. So again, you may be wondering, okay, you're right. It applies to every baseball team. So what's the big deal about the Cardinals? All right, here's what I mean about this being an extreme offense. Okay. Heck, in the last week, and this we're talking about from last Wednesday through last night in Pittsburgh, we've seen the Cardinals get shut out in back-to-back games by the Cubs. They go to Cleveland and win 3 in a row, and they average 7 runs a game while doing it. Then they head over to Pittsburgh, and the first 2 games of the series to get shut out back-to-back again. I mean, they've been shut out 4 times in the last week, and then in the other 3 games, they scored over 7 runs in each game in terms on average. All right, here's another one. Going into Wednesday's game, the Cardinals had scored 5 or more runs in a game 43 times this season. And you know what? That's really, really impressive. It is. In fact, there are only two teams in the majors, the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks, who have scored 5 or more runs in a game more often than the Cardinals through Tuesday. So that is absolutely impressive. Except then they go the other way. They were at that extreme, you're putting up 5 runs, 5 runs or more in a game all those times. Man, that's a good offense. Well, then you go to the other extreme. It looks a lot different, right? The Cardinals have been shut out 7 times. That's the 10th most among the 30 clubs. The Cardinals have scored no more than 1 run in 21 games. And the only teams that have done that fewer times are the White Sox, Rockies, Rangers, and Royals, right? And they're all losing teams. 21 times where they get nothing more than a single run. 21 times already this season. The Cardinals have scored 2 or fewer runs 29 times, which is tied for 9th most among the 30 teams. Their record in those games is 5-24. So at one end, the Cardinals have all these high-scoring games. Great. Outstanding. The high-scoring games, 5+ runs, more than just about any other offense in the majors. Like I said, they're like 3rd in that category. But on the other end, the Cardinals are scoring 2 runs or less in 33.3% of their games, and only 8 teams have done worse than that. So you see what I mean about extremes? One extreme, then back to the other extreme. One extreme good, one extreme rotten. It just never ends. This cycle's been going on all season long. The problem is with the Cardinals offense, you don't know which one's going to show up from day to day. Check out this now, right? And this, the recent stretch of games, going back to like the middle of June, okay, really underlines the point I'm making here. In their last 9 losses, which goes back to June 11th, okay, the Cardinals have been, the last 9 losses, the Cardinals have been shut out 5 times. They've scored only 1 run another time, and they've scored exactly 2 runs in the other 3 losses. So in their last 9 losses, they didn't get more than 2 runs in any of them. And you got all those shutouts. You got those 5 shutouts in the single 1-run game. I'm repeating it, and scoring exactly 2 runs in the 3 other losses. They scored only 7 runs total in the 9 losses. That is extreme. That is really extreme. But in their last 11 wins, going back to June the 14th, the Cardinals have averaged 7.45 runs per victory. In the 11 wins, they never scored less than 5 runs in any of them. And they produced at least 7 runs 7 times, and they got 8 or more runs 6 times. That's extreme in a good way. That's really extreme. So, I think the Cubs series, the Indian series, or the Guardians, pardon me, and then the Pirates series, because they're also recent, I think it brings the point on home. So what do you do with an offense where, you just don't have any reasonable expectation of what you're going to get from day to day? That's the problem here, right? And the other problem here, and I alluded to it earlier, but I wanted to kind of, say a little more about it. What we tend to do is overrate the Cardinals, who are pretty good or good, right? Brendan Donovan and Masyn Winn are nice players offensively. Alec Burleson is a nice player offensively, at least when he's in a groove. But if we're being honest about this, we do overrate them all simply because they're the only 2 or 3 Cardinals that have, and I'm talking about in Winn and Donovan's case, they're the only 2 Cardinals that have at least 2 wins above replacement. Offensively, that takes in hitting and base running. The Cardinals have only 2 guys with at least 2 wins above replacement, but they aren't big stars offensively. To state the obvious, they're not. When we're talking about Winn and we're talking about Donovan, and let's just, to be a nice guy, let me throw Burley in there. They're not at the level of Ohtani, Kyle Tucker, Aaron Judge, Freddie Freeman, Francisco Lindor, Jose Ramirez, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, even that great-looking young hitter for the Nationals, James Wood, the Seattle catchers, Cal Raleigh, I should say, Pete Crow Armstrong having a great year, Rafael Devers, Corbin Carroll, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., Will Smith, Riley Green, George Springer, Vladdy Guerrero Jr., L.A. De La Cruz. And I mean, it's a long list of what I would consider, at least for 2025, to be truly elite hitters, okay? And the Cardinals really don't have an elite hitter. They really don't. And, like, for example, I think the world of Donovan. But I mentioned this. I don't know if I mentioned this in yesterday's video, but let me just mention this now. Donovan is great with a right-handed pitcher on the mound. But if we're going to talk about a guy being a true, like, elite hitter, he bats left-handed. And if he's truly elite hitter, he'd be doing a lot better than hitting 208 with the 600 OPS against lefty pitchers. That's my point. I love Brendan Donovan, but I'm also going to resist this temptation of joining the crowd and just saying, oh, the Cardinals got to extend him and they got to pay up and give him a long-term contract. Really? Are you absolutely sure about that? And the way that Ali Marmol uses them, they run him into the ground. Maybe one of the reasons he's in a slump lately is because he's tired. And Masyn Winn, I think he looms as a long-term extension type of guy. But you also need to take a look around, man. The shortstop position in the major leagues, I remember a few times when it's been better than this. There are so many outstanding shortstops. And, Masyn Winn, and again, I feel bad saying this because I really appreciate it. He's just part of the crowd. He's not a standout, except when he makes spectacular defensive plays and he puts that arm to use with those great throws. Yeah, he stands out. That's where the highlights come. That's where people look at him and take attention. But if you really want to be, again, honest about this, do you think Cardinals hitters, right? How many of them get national attention in any fantastic way? And I'm not talking about Arenado being in trade rumors or things like that. I'm not talking about, Sports Center or MLB networks. Oh, Brendan Donovan had a 4-hit game, and he gets 10, 15 seconds and that's it. So that's part of it. It's the media landscape. It's the social media landscape. If you got a truly elite hitter, you'll see that guy everywhere. He'll be showcased and talked about everywhere. You'll see video everywhere. Do the Cardinals have a guy like that? The answer unequivocally is no. And let's not pretend otherwise. Hey, I want to talk more about that in a minute. The topic in my third and final segment is going to be, well, what is going on here? Why are the Cardinals so short of these stars? I got some thoughts on it, but first I want to encourage the guys out there who may be in a slump to take some action. If you're in a slump, you got to do something about it. You got to shake up the lineup, so to speak. And that's where Blue Chew comes in. Gentlemen, Blue Chew can help you get going, to give you that boost that you need, that will lead to pleasurable and fulfilling, a more pleasurable and fulfilling life with your significant other. And you know what? That's not just good for you. That's great for both of you. This applies to men of all ages, but especially those, I would say, in my age range, over 60. There's no reason, just because you're 60, 63, whatever, there's no reason for you to strike out or be a singles hitter, settle for being a singles hitter every now and then. You can be a slugger and a home run hitter. And I'm going to use those metaphors. Yes, you can have a dramatic change. This issue impacts a lot of men, and I know all about it, which is why I appreciate Blue Chew. Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for enhanced intimacy. Think of Blue Chew this way: chew it and do it. You're going to get your first month of Blue Chew free. You're just a few clicks away. It's easy to get started. You sign up at bluechew.com. You consult with one of their licensed medical providers. And once you are approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. It's all done online. It's all private. No doctor visit, no awkward conversations, no crowded pharmacies. You just order online and you're good to go. We got a special deal for our listeners and viewers. Try your first month of Blue Chew free. You just use the promo code Bernie. You just pay $5 for shipping. That's it. That's promo code Bernie. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And I want to thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the Bernie Show and giving men the help they need. Thank you very much. All right, here's the thing that I think is especially painful for me and many of you. It depends on your age and how long you've been an ardent Cardinals fan. And in my case, I started in 1985. I started helping out the late great Rick Hummel covering the Cardinals, but I only did that early in the season because I was the St. Louis football Cardinals beat writer then. And so once training camp rolled around or whatever, I was like nonstop football. But, I've been a columnist covering baseball, writing about baseball, a talk show host talking about baseball since 1989 here in St. Louis. So I have a pretty good sense of history. Not only the history that I had a ringside seat for, but when you're covering one team for a long time, you become really, really educated and enriched in terms of the overall franchise history. And the Cardinals have had an incredible legacy of star hitters. I mean, big-time star hitters. We're talking about some of the greatest players in the history of the game. I could go down a long list of names, but you already know them. And by the way, I'm not saying the Cardinals need to come up with guys that you're going to, they need to come up with 5 future Hall of Famers. No, I'm not saying that. Like I said, I'm realistic. And while the Tony La Russa-led Cardinals, 1996 through 2011, were a team with Walt Jocketty doing it, that traded for stars like Jim Edmonds, Matt Holliday, Mark McGwire, Scott Rolen, Edgar Renteria, David Freese. And David Freese was a star. They didn't win the World Series in 2011 without him. And there were others. That was just a short list of guys they acquired through trade. But the Cardinals they also drafted and developed future Hall of Fame players like Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina. And they also drafted guys who were not Cooperstown Hall of Famers, but a couple of these guys, one of them's already in the Cardinals Hall of Fame. And I know that there's going to be at least another from the guys I'm about to mention. The Cardinals drafted and developed some outstanding hitters, such as Matt Carpenter, J.D. Drew, Brian Jordan, Ray Lankford, who is in the Cardinals Hall of Fame, and Alan Craig, who for a few years there before he suffered that terrible foot injury, was as dangerous a hitter, especially with runners on, as anybody in the major leagues. His career just was cut short by a terrible injury. So it started to kind of go on the wane. The homegrown, that's the key. The homegrown star power has gradually diminished over time. Other than Pujols in 2022 and Yadier Molina in his latter years, the last internally developed position player to be chosen for the All-Star game was Paul DeYoung in 2019, and he was a reserve. And before that, it was Matt Carpenter in 2016, plus Aledmys Diaz in 16. That's it. We're going back just about 10 years. And, there's only 3 homegrown hitters that have been named an All-Star. And I don't think any of them started in the All-Star game. So that just symbolically tells you all you need to know. And because of the shortage of homegrown homegrown star position players. There I go. I got it. Because of that, the front office and ownership, had to go out and hustle to make trades for Marcell Ozuna. That was before the 2018 season. Paul Goldschmidt before the 2019 season. And Nolan Arenado before the 2021 season. The Cardinals paid a heavy price, as you know, for Ozuna. They gave away pitching prospects who became stars elsewhere. Sandy Alcantara, a Cy Young winner with Miami, and Zach Gallen, who has done great in Arizona. They had to give up those two guys for Ozuna, and he wasn't here all that long. The Cardinals didn't have to give up anything painful for Goldie and Arenado. Can I take an aside here? I always laugh at these people. Like remember when Luke Weaver was saving all these games for the Yankees, right? I can't believe, here we go again, another former Cardinal. Why did they let go of Luke Weaver? You can't be serious, right? You can't be taken serious. How many teams did Luke Weaver pitch for before the Yankees took a desperate flyer on him to be their closer, and he was great for a while? I don't even know if he's pitching now this year. So anyway, the Cardinals, and the best player in that deal for Goldie was Carson Kelly. He's a really good catcher, but they didn't need him at the time. There was a guy named Molina in the house, right? And he wasn't done yet. So, yeah, they didn't give up hardly anything for Goldie and Arenado, but in their 4 seasons as teammates, despite their individual excellence, the Cardinals failed to win a postseason game with both of them in the lineup. And they did not help the cause either, because they did nothing in those postseason games. Goldie did in 2019. He was big in that division round victory over the Braves. But I'm talking about Goldie and Arenado together. Goldie is gone. Arenado's 34, and his offense is below average, and the Cardinals don't have a true hitting star in the making except for J.J. Weatherholt. That does not preclude, of course, the possibility of other prospects developing into something special. But we can't assume it. And another problem is this. It's not as easy now to trade for superstar hitters as it was back in the Walt Jocketty days. Because during those times, a lot of these teams, once a really good hitter got to free agency, the year before free agency, they realized they weren't going to be able to afford him, or they didn't want to pay him. So they would, let's trade him and get nothing. Front offices will get something for him. Front offices don't work that way anymore. A lot of front offices, they want to re-sign their best hitters. And then if they're going to give up a guy in his walk year, they expect something good in return. And you're not, it's hard to get these guys in a trade unless you're willing to inherit a humongous contract like the Giants did when they acquired Rafael Devers. And as I mentioned, the wealthier teams re-sign their own stars to big contracts, which mean there's fewer big stars to go around. The days of getting Jim Edmonds, Scott Rolen, Mark McGwire, Matt Holliday, Goldie, Arenado, we could name more, but you get the point. The days of getting them for roster filler players or fringe prospects, that's gone. It's over. You might get lucky. You might get lucky when one of those fringe prospects develops into something in a way that exceeds everybody's expectations. That's what kind of happened with, never mind. I got to get this wrapped up. And the other thing is, when a true star hitter is available in the free agent market, Cardinals ownership has been unwilling to make a huge financial investment. And I'm only going to name a couple guys, like in Bryce Harper, who would have signed here, or Juan Soto, who I don't think would have signed here, or several others that we could mention. And also, free agents are now a lot more picky about where they want to play. Suppose they want to play in Southern California or Northern California or somewhere on the eastern shore, the eastern seaboard, right? Maybe some guys don't want to be in the Midwest. It seems like they're a lot fussier now. So you combine that with the fact that there's not as many of them available as a free agent, and ownership here is unwilling to go big in one of those $300 million or more contracts. You're pretty short on options for coming up with a true star hitter or multiple star hitters, and you're going to have to grow and develop your own. And that's really one of the reasons why the Cardinals offense has turned so erratic. And at some point, sometimes it's outstanding. A lot of times it's a dud. I told you about the two extremes. See, the Cardinals don't have that guy or two guys or even three guys that can break open a game when the team is slumping. And maybe you got three guys, maybe the other two are kind of cold for a week or 10 days. Well, that's when the third guy delivers. And, you know, he'll break open a close game. When you have more options in terms of like elite hitters, man, you can just find so many ways to win a game offensively, because that's why they're great players. They come through over and over and over again. Listen, this is where it kind of pains me to even talk about this, because I think about think back to 2004 and the MV3. The MV3, Pujols, Edmonds, and Rolen. Go to Baseball Reference and look up their numbers in 2004. You'll laugh. It's just crazy. All right, how about this, right? This will bring it home as well. The 2004 Cardinals were shut out 4 times during the entire 162-game regular season. 4 times. The 2025 Cardinals were shut out 4 times in the last week. The 2004 Cardinals were held to no more than a run in only 16 times all year, 162 regular season games. The 2025 Cardinals have already topped that. They've been held to 1 or no runs 21 times already, and we're not even at the All-Star break. No, the Cardinals don't have an MV3. They just don't, right? And I'm not saying they should, but they don't. They don't have an MV2 either. I don't think they even have a true MV1. And am I spoiled because of, had a chance to watch the careers of Pujols and Molina and others, and Rolen at his peak, and Arenado at his peak, and Holiday and McGuire in 98, 99, and I mean on and on and on and on and on, right? Yeah, I miss those days. But those days just make you realize how, relatively speaking, how bleak it is now. It's not that I'm living in the past when I talk about the MV3 and all of that. It's not that I'm living in the past, but that era is now long over. And even though I know you can't return to the past, and I know that that magical time of star after star after star is gone, I realize that. But even though I'm not living in the past, I would just like to know and have some hope and confidence that there will be a positive future that will have not just one elite hitter, but 2, maybe even 3 true stars, capital T, capital S, true stars in the St. Louis lineup. Can we count on that? I'm always going to try to be hopeful, but no, I can't count on that. And that's pretty unsettling. It really is. Listen, thanks for watching. I know I went long here. A little late getting this done today. We were having some technical issues, which happens. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Leave your comments. Appreciate you very much. And we appreciate DraftKings for presenting the Bernie Show here on STL Sports Central. Thank you.